Good day, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope that everyone had a good week. I'm Cathy W. Welcome to the October 24th chat. Let's all grab a cup of tea or coffee and your yarn and settle in for a bit of a chat. Of course, there are some works in progress and 3 finished items this week. Today, I thought it would be fun to highlight some of the tools that I use most often, especially ones that I started using as a beginner. And I would love to hear about the ones that you use most often too. You can comment about them or send me an email. And next week, I will share about those in the October 31st video. For anyone who is new, I'm not affiliated anywhere. These are just things that I actually used when starting out, and they are not in any particular order. Many of these still have a place right beside me on my rolling cart. And the first group of items I would say are definitely good for when you're a brand new beginner at crochet or beginning to knit. I started by trying out a few hooks and found a few that are ones that I really enjoyed. My first crochet hooks were metal ones by Boy. They are a tapered type of hook. There is another type of hook that is less pointy, and some people like those. Excuse me. I have a few of these, or a couple of the first ones that I ever got, the loose ones. And then, so when I was first trying out knitting or crochet, I suggest, like I did, maybe buy 1 or 2 of different materials and different styles to see what feels most comfortable to you before you buy a whole set. Hooks and actually knitting needles too come in so many different materials and styles, and there really is something to suit everyone. Buying a few individual ones is what I did. Eventually, my first set of hooks was this one, all metal, gifted to me, and it was a Boy set. And years later, I received another set, and those ones were Clover Amour. They look like this for anyone who's never seen them. There we go. And also I got a set of ones from the Quilted Bear. Now that I think of it, all of my crochet hook sets have been gifts, and they all sort of have the same kind of hook on them. So I really do think that I gravitate toward a Boy hook style. Other things that are good to have at first: a pair of scissors, of course, for cutting. Now, at first, the scissors that I used were just ones from the kitchen, and eventually I got what they call embroidery scissors, so they are nice and sharp and they have a good point on the end. Another thing is a measuring tape, and the first measuring tape that I used was one from my husband's toolbox. Eventually I graduated to having one in this style, and it was more of a fabric kind of tape measure rather than the metal ones like my husband had in his toolbox. Eventually you might decide to add in a few stitch markers. Now, the stitch markers that I first started out with when I was crocheting, they were these bobby pins. And the nice thing, I still do sometimes use them. If I'm traveling and I find I need a stitch marker, I often have bobby pins in my hair, and I will just grab one from there. So they still do work in a pinch. And when it comes to knitting, the stitch markers that I first started out with were these kind of loops that I made with pieces of scrap yarn, and I just would tie a loop, and this nice little end on was good to grab and move the stitch marker from one needle to the next. So now when it comes to stitch stoppers, these are the fancy kind that I often will use now for when I'm knitting. These ones came as a gift, and I've received a number of them as gifts from people. When I first started knitting, this is what I would use to stop my stitches from coming off my needles. I would jam both of my needles into a tightly wound ball of yarn. Now that is a little bit risky because there's always a chance that the needle will pop out unexpectedly. So these are a really good purchase if you're doing knitting. These are what I started with. And now as time goes on, I have a lovely collection of stitch stoppers, and for both crochet and knitting, I love my collections of progress keepers and stitch markers. They bring me joy, and I think of the places where I purchased them and of the people that I've received them from when I use them and when I see them. To me, these little treasures are like the friendship bracelets of the knitting world. So for knitting, I started with some needles that I purchased secondhand. It was from a marketplace called Kijiji, and these are all fixed circular needles. I got them at a reasonable price and a very nice selection of different sizes and different lengths, and I still use some of them to this day. I sort of check the sizes and include them in here within envelopes, and on the envelope I sort of indicate the size of the needle and the length of the needle, so it's a little easier for me to find the one that I need. And of course, when I got these, what I found really important was to get something to be able to check the size of the needle with. So that was really, really important. And last but not least, I don't know if this is absolutely important for a beginner, but I do like my yarn winder, and that is something that I use often. And even as an advanced beginner, I would say, I think an inexpensive one of these can be very helpful. Actually, I use it even more often than I thought I might, especially for leftover yarns, and when I progressed from beginner to more experienced and ready for yarns that came in hanks. This yarn winder has been so helpful. Now at this time, I do not have a Swift to hold the hank of yarn while winding. For that, my Swift is named Jeff and is paid in chocolate and coffee. And someday I would like to look into interchangeables for fingering weight yarns, and that is on my wish list. I thank people who shared in the comments a few weeks ago about their favorite hooks and needles. That is very helpful, and I'm in the process of trying out a few types of the thin small needles. I'm sort of interviewing them to find the material and the brand that will work best for me, so I can purchase some interchangeables for that really thin yarn, maybe for socks, maybe for thin weight shawls and things like that. Those are some of the items that I used when a beginner crafter and an advanced beginner crafter. It would be great to hear from you, either things that you suggest are needed when starting out, or maybe things that you use most often as a more advanced crafter. Thank you so much for commenting or emailing about this so that we can help each other, and I will share about them in next week's video. Now today I am excited to show you progress that I've made on one of my shawls. The other has not been picked up this week as I have focused on finishing a few whips. This week I have 3 finished items, so let's start with the finished items. All of these are ones that I made for make-alongs. These are hosted by creators that I've been following for years, long before I even started Yarn with Heart. And the first finished item is a blanket. The pattern is called the Feather and Fan Rainbow Baby Blanket. It is designed by Cathy, Waldie. It's a free pattern available on Ravelry. For this one, I started with 5mm needles for the first few rows and for the final few rows, and the rest of the blanket I switched to a 5.5mm needles. As some of you know, this blanket caused me a bit of a challenge with lots of frogging at first. This was not because of the pattern, as it was very well written. It was all user error. Eventually all went well, and I'm so happy with the way this worked out. And a very nice lapgan that I was able to make using 2 skeins of Lion brand ice cream roving divigation in the color Shirley Temple. The reason I chose this yarn is that it matches the colors in the book cover of the month. Rosanna from Crochet with Nona Rosanna has a different book cover each month, and this month the book is called Watership Down by Richard Adams. There were 2 book covers to choose from this month, and I chose the more colorful one. Also, I'm so grateful that this is the book that I submitted to the make-along, and what a lovely surprise that my book suggestion was one of the ones picked for the make-along. What a lovely surprise. As you can see by the cover of the book, this is a story of the saga of a wild colony of bunnies and their adventures when traveling to a new home. For anyone new here, I really do like bunnies. We raised many of them at my childhood home, and at many times in my childhood, they were my pets. 2 other finished items this week are for Judy's Creations in Crochet. As many of you know, she has a Butterfly of the Month make-along. There is a lot of green in this month's butterfly. I had yarn that was a good match for the butterfly, and yet was having such a time. Could not find a pattern that I was inspired to make with this yarn. The yarns that I had chosen are Schock and Meyer Bravo Worsted Originals, and Bernat Super Value Black. And thank you so much to the friend who helped me to find a pattern that would look well and be fun to make in these yarns. The pattern that I made is by C.J. Brady. It is called the Frost Flowers Crocheted Worsted Cowl. It is available for purchase on Ravelry. I tried using a 5mm hook, but found that a 4.5 hook worked better with this yarn in this pattern. For a matching hat, I used a free pattern on Brienne Malden's website. Her website is called Hooked on Homemade Happiness, and this pattern is called Faded Beanie. I used a 5mm hook for this one too. And now for the shawl that is a work in progress. Oh, it's down here. 1 second. This one also hosted by Judy from Judy's Creation in Crochet. And for her dice game, each week she rolls 2 times. One dice is indicating the color to use, and another dice is indicating the number of rows to make in the pattern. And so far there have been 5 stripes. I chose the same pattern as Judy in this game, and if you'd like to jump in and play, there is definitely still time to join along. Details are easy to find as they are in Judy's October description boxes, and here is a peek at my shawl so far. The shawl pattern that I'm making is called Achilles, and it is a paid pattern on Ravelry. This was designed by Silke Terhorst. And now I will wait a couple of weeks before I show you this again, so that you can see how much progress is being made by mid-November. Now let's end with a couple of fun facts for both knitters and crocheters. If you would like to read about other world records, I have the link where I found these quotes in the description box. So by searching this site, I discovered that the largest knitting needles measured 4.42 meters or 14 feet, 6.33 inches long, and they have a diameter of 9.01 centimeters, or that's 3.54 inches. They were made by Elizabeth Bond from the United Kingdom and were presented and measured at Wiltshire College in the United Kingdom on June 13th, 2017. Now the largest crochet hook is 2.77 meters. That's 9 feet 1 inch with a diameter of 11 centimeters. That's 4.3 inches and was achieved by Claire and Bro Sams, both in the United Kingdom, as measured on December 11th, 2017. The construction of this crochet hook took place due to the participants' love of crocheting. It was first presented as part of a textile craft teaching event on Worldwide Knit in Public Day. So thank you everyone so much for being here, for sharing in your comments and leaving your thumbs. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your crochet. Enjoy your knitting. And I hope to see you next video.